Lee County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by David Barrett, our Sheriff's Department chaplain. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Shall we pray? Almighty God, today is the day in which we recognize the people who make our county government work, our employees. Whether working behind a desk, on a road crew, in a patrol car, in the jail, or wherever else our employees are placed, we thank you for these wonderful people who give their best for our citizens. Bless each one in a special way, especially those whose anniversaries we celebrate today. Last Friday morning, we lost one of these special people. Executive Chief Deputy Bob Knowles' leadership caused Tarrant County to be known for having one of the best-run jails in this country. At his passing, a giant hole is left for all of us who knew him as a friend and in the structure of the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. We pray that you will grant unto him eternal rest and let light perpetual shine upon him. Be with his family. They need your loving compassion. And be with all of us who knew and loved him. Thank you for placing him in our path these past 14 years. And may all of us live and serve in a way that will most please you. And for this we beseech your divine aid. Amen.
Thank you, David. As David mentioned, we did lose Chief Knowles last week. He's been with us for a number of years, for 14 years. Has really done an outstanding job for Tarrant County, as do all of our employees. But we do certainly, I believe, want to close today's meeting in memory of Chief Knowles.
And Your Honor, could we begin today's meeting with a moment of silence in his honor?
That would be good. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have just one announcement as it relates to the agenda, and that's we're going to take a particular item out of order this morning. If you will turn to the briefing section. That'll be item 11A, which is an update on the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. Since this is the only agenda announcement, Your Honor, I would like to ask Mr. Ed Bass to come up and address the court at this time.
Great. Good morning, sir. It's that time of the year. It's cold outside.
Good morning, Judge Whitley. Yes, we've been warming up on cooling down on stock show weather all week. Judge Whitley, commissioners, Mr. Manius, and staff, I come before you this morning in anticipation of the 119th edition of the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, which opens this Friday. But let me begin by carrying you forward to 2019, where we anticipate that we will be gathered together on a Tuesday in early January in anticipation of the 124th edition of the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, and in anticipation of inaugurating a new multi-purpose arena that will be used at that time for rodeo for the first time. For the In November, Fort Worth voters gave overwhelming approval, a mandate really, for moving ahead with this new arena. Over 79% of the voters indicating their approval. Now the public-private partnership that will build this arena is busy with planning, design, and financing efforts to make this a reality. The Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo will occupy the new arena for 30 days each year for its legendary rodeo. But the rest of the year it truly will be multi-purpose with concerts, family shows, ice shows and circuses, basketball tournaments, graduations. In fact, Tarrant County College is particularly excited. For the first time, it will be able to have a commencement ceremony for all of its campuses at one time in one place. Now, in the meantime, the Fort Worth Stock Show is not coasting or resting on our laurels. This upcoming show, which will run for 23 days, January 19th to February 7th, will host over 1 million visitors. The weather willing, we expect around 1.2 million visitors. Those are made up of 400 individuals, many of whom will make multiple visits, and over 3/4 of those visitors come from outside Fort Worth, many from rural Tarrant County and other Tarrant County communities, but from all over Texas, from most states of the Union, and from many countries overseas. But these aren't the only attendees of the show. We expect over 29,000 head of livestock to visit as well. And over a third of those are involved with our youth shows that young 4-H and FFA students come and exhibit, learning about agricultural industry, but more importantly, responsibility and care of livestock. The show will generate direct spending on the show grounds, tickets, food and beverage, and other concessions, spending on all kinds of vendors and exhibitors, spending of over $56 million. And that will generate well over $1 million in tax revenues to the city of Fort Worth, over $3.5 million in tax revenues for the state of Texas, and of course, substantial economic benefit for Tarrant County as well. All of these, according to an economic impact study by Dr. Gerald Garata, copies of which you have been provided. Now, perhaps the most important piece of business this morning is I bring for each of you your rodeo badges, your pass badge that you may wear on your lapels. If you'll excuse me to show those in attendance. I have mine on, of course. We have brought you, as is our tradition, your pass badge and plus a badge for your spouse. I urge you to not just wear these when you come out to the stock show, but wear them daily as a sign of pride. It is this show that that year after year teaches generation after generation of Fort Worth and Tarrant County youngsters what our Western heritage is all about. I like to say it is the stock show that makes Fort Worth different from Dallas. So proudly wear your badges during the period of the show. And come out as you do every year. I see all of you there. And help participate in this show. It is legendary.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Again, thank you for coming out today. We appreciate it. We really do. This is an institution, it's a landmark of Fort Worth and Tarrant County, and we're as excited, well, maybe almost as excited about the new arena as I know you are, and all of the hard work. We appreciate all the hard work that you put into it. It really is a public-private partnership, and I think it's another sign of what collaboration can do for a community if people will just work together. And so we appreciate all the efforts you put to working with the community and the community having the opportunity to work with you. Thank you very much. Okay, it's the first of the year. It's our first meeting of the year, and therefore it's my first opportunity of the year to mess up your names. And I trust that I will do a very good job of that because there are many opportunities as I look through this list. We're going to start with our 5-year employees. And as I call your name, please stand and remain standing until I finish with that particular group, and then we'll recognize the group, and then you can be seated, and we'll head for the next group. So our first 5-year employee is Joshua Adams with the Sheriff's Department.
Good job, Judge.
Yeah, that was about the extent of it right there. Patricia Bruton, Sheriff's Office. Now, as I said, if it sounds like it, stand up. Ross Byers, the Sheriff's Office. Marcy Choate, Precinct 1 Operations. James Dawson, Jr., Juvenile Services. Yay! Rebecca Fernandez, Tax Office. There you go. Ann Hollinger, District Clerk's Office. Alan Hoover, Sheriff's Office. Ronnie Lee, Constable Precinct 4. Petra Morosky, Sheriff's Office. Okay, how do I pronounce that first name since I didn't do it right? Yep, that sounds a whole lot better than what I said. What did he say?
Piotr.
Yeah.
The R is kind of silent.
Yeah. Michael Nelson, Sheriff's Office. Cameron Wardlow, Information Technology. Timmy White, Criminal Courts Magistrate. Gary Williams, Precinct 1 Operations. And Kent Williams, Sheriff's Office. Let's give these 5-year employees a hand. Now for our 10-year employees, Lori Bennett, Criminal District Attorney's Office. Dub Branson, Constable Precinct 4. Clint Burgess, Constable Precinct 7. Clint. Kathy Carroll, Precinct 1 Operations. Denise Colford, JP Precinct 6. Jennifer Farnham, Juvenile Services. Malika Gonzalez, Sheriff's Office. William Higgins, Criminal District Attorney's Office. There's one. Alan Hill, Sheriff's Office. Cynthia Ince, Domestic Relations. Tommy Judge, Sheriff's Office. Melinda Ortega, Human Resources Office. Brought your cheering section there with you, didn't they? And you just love how much they embarrassed you, don't you? I can tell. I can tell. Christopher Ponder, DA's Office. I'd ask how tall you were, but. Donald Rowden, Sheriff's Office. And Tamara Thompson, DA's Office. Let's give these 10-year employees. Well, I'm going to go back for just a moment and mention Mr. Ponder again. The reason I said I was going to ask how tall you were is this. We would sit in closed session. Every time Chris came in, one of the things Judge Vandergriff would say is he'd look at him and say, "How tall are you?" And so as I remember Judge Vandergriff, as we all remember Judge Vandergriff, that's something that every time Mr. Ponder walks into the office, one of us will say, "Well, really, how tall are you?" Now for our 15-year employees. First, Suzanne Berry, the 153rd District Court. Mary Boyd, County Clerk's Office. So there's two people standing up over there. Sonia Cruz, Public Health. George Gallagher, the 396th District Court. Ann Garner, Court of Appeals. Michelle Domestic Relations. Michelle, okay. It would have been easy. I mean, it just looks easy there. It just didn't come out of the mouth easy. Maria Hernandez, Public Health. Jennifer Hunter, the 360th District Court. Aaron Johnson, Human Services. Patrick Parker, Juvenile Services. Tracy Pointer, I didn't do that one very well either. Medical Examiner. Yeah, simple. Just keep it simple, Whitley. Larry Steffler, Medical Examiner's Office. Matthew Stucker, Sheriff's Office. These are our 15-year employees. Now for our 20-year employees, Bobby Bell with the Sheriff's Office. Diane Booth, Domestic Relations. There you go. Santiago Chavez, Sheriff's Office. Edna Hickey, District Clerk's Office. Jeffrey Hodges, Tax Office. Thomas Lowe, the 236th District Court. Nona McDonald, DA's Office. Lorraine Parham, the 372nd District Court. Constance Patton, the Medical Examiner's Office. Constance. Gary Perkins, Constable Precinct 7. Gary. Sheila Walker, the 213th District Court. David Wish, the 372nd District Court. And Tom Wilder, the District Clerk's Office. Congratulations to all of you 20-year employees.
That ought to be worth lunch today.
Now for our 25-year plus employees, I'm going to call on them and ask them to stand, and we'll try to talk about a few things about them, maybe. Let's see here. There we go. Our first is Deborah Feaster with Purchasing Department. There she is. She came by and we talked a little bit. Started off. There you go. Started off in the Sheriff's Department, spent about 9 years there, and then moved over to purchasing and has been a buyer in the Purchasing Department since that time. When I asked her what she liked most about the county, it was the opportunity to move up and the people that she's had a chance to work with, the family attitude, and the fact that, you just never seem to meet a stranger from that standpoint. When I, asked her kind of what's been occurring over the last 5 years, she said, I had always hoped to be here this long. A lot of times I'll ask folks, did you ever expect to be here this long? And I think this time, probably more than any, many of the folks that I talked with said, yeah, You know, I'm one of these people who look at a job and look at it as a career, not as a job. And I think many of the people, most of the people in the county look at it that way. And she said, I really did expect to be here. She has 4 grandchildren. They're all pretty close, except she said one of my granddaughters went and got married and went ahead and moved over to the state of Washington. And so, you know, that's, she said, but with FaceTime and with all the stuff that you've got nowadays with technology, you at least still get an opportunity to kind of talk and see them when you're talking. Deborah, we appreciate very much the 25 years you've given us. Next is Alan Hunter with the Sheriff's Department. There's Alan with the courts area. Started off in the Belknap facility, went to the Corrections Center, spent some time in the grievance and disciplinary area, then moved into the judicial area, is now in the 231st Court. Previous to that, he'd been to the 322nd, and I said, well, you know, he said, I'm moving up. He said, we went 1 floor higher this time. So he said, I love the opportunity and the people I've had a chance to work with. You know, he said, I started with the county when I was 21, and I said, I feel like I've grown up here. And he said, you know, I may be here another 20 years from that standpoint. We talked about the fact that, you know, since the last time we'd talked, he's had a son that's graduated from high school. He's actually in the family court. And I think a lot of times we think of the action, you know, the bailiffs, the action being in maybe the criminal court. Oh, those folks are subdued when they come in. He said the family court's where the action is. He said you never know when one's going to get after the other.
Good people act bad.
Good people acting bad. So he said that's where the action is. Alan, we appreciate very much the 25 years you've given us. Next is Kim Husky with Information Technologies, 25 years. There's Kim. Started out in IT or data services, working in financial and I guess the benefits area on the System 36. She said then we moved to the Dun & Bradstreet area, now with SAP and in the budget area, I guess, and still working in that area. When I asked her about the memorable moments, it was the tornado and it was the shooting. So she said not so good maybe memories, but those were the ones that really stuck out. I asked her what she liked most, and she said it's definitely the people that I've had a chance to work with. And I said, you know, what brought you to the county? Sometimes it'll be a relative. Sometimes it'll be, you know, a friend saying you ought to look. She said, you know, I was kind of thinking one day I'd really like to maybe have a change from what I was doing. She said, I picked up the paper and read an ad in the paper and came down and applied, and she said, I've been here ever since. Kim, we appreciate very much 25 years of service. Now, next is Dana Kuhn. I understand that Dana, she is with County Court of Law Number 2. Was not going to be able to make it down here today because of the court, but she really has, even though we're saying she's 25 years, she's one of those, she started in 82, she left in 91 and came back in 95. So, you know, we're saying 25, but it's really 30. So y'all call and congratulate her on her 30 years. She's, one of the things she said was that whenever it get cold, she'd call Judge Vandergriff and ask her, you know, about 5 in the morning and say, you're going to close the county. And I asked her, I said, did he ever say yes? And she said no. And I said, good, because that's one of the traditions that I plan on, to many of y'all's dismay, continuing. So tell Dana congratulations if you see her, and for her 30 years of service with the county. Next is Norman Moreland with the Sheriff's Department. There's Norman. Started out in the Sheriff's Department in the Cold Springs area, then went to the labor detail and has been there ever since. He said, you know, he's had an opportunity to work in the garden area that the Sheriff's Department has established, and they've won awards down there. He's been very integral in that part of it. He said he loves the way that the county takes care of its folks through, retirement, whether it be retirement, health insurance. He's actually retiring the 31st of this month. Feels like over the years the county has really taken care of him. And Norman, we want to tell you how much we appreciate the 25 years of service you've given to Tarrant County. Next is Pam Walker with the Auditor's Office. There's Pam. Started off in the elections area with Robert, and then about after a year, she moved over to the Auditor's Office. When we talked about this, 5 years ago, but one of the memorable moments, she said, was when the county recognized or celebrated the bicentennial. She said, I really appreciate the fact that everybody dressed up in the era, and she said that's something that I'll always remember. She said, I love the way that everyone gives back to the different charities, United Way, Meals on Wheels, the Food Bank, the Adopt-A-School programs. She said it's just kind of amazing to watch the county, and all these folks do it day in, day out on their own time, and she said, I really appreciate that. She said the other thing that she'd really watched over the 25 years was the progress in technology. A lot has occurred over the last 25 years. When I asked her about anything else, she said, she had worked in Dallas for many years, but had actually lived in Saginaw. And so she decided that she wanted to live into this area and move into this area. I think when you started a family and you wanted to be closer here. And she said, I'm not surprised at all that I'm still here. She says, she said, I like to find a job and then stick with it. And I can't tell you how much, Pam, we appreciate the fact that you picked this job and that you've stayed with it for 25 years. Thank you very much. Next is Keith Watson with the Sheriff's Department. 25 years, started in the Cold Springs area. Then when the Correction Center was open, moved up there, worked in housing, then in the booking area, had spent some time in the warrant division, and also spent a lot of time in the field training area, training other officers. He was on the tactical squad for 15 years. Now he's in the judicial area in County Court number 7. When I asked him what was the most memorable, he said, it's the opportunity that I've had to train folks and then to have an opportunity to see them succeed. And I think, again, that speaks very highly for Keith and for really the attitude that a lot of our folks take. They take that attitude of we want to help somebody, and we want to work with folks, and we want to really, give them a chance to be better and to do better. He said, I absolutely love the people that I've had a chance to work with. He said it's a great place to work, and it's a great place to work because of folks like you, Keith. Thank you very much for your time. Now, next is Alice Moore. And I told her I was going to kid her that she and I lived together in a double wide for about 18 months when I first got to the county because we were renovating our sub-courthouse out there, and she was in the hot checks area, I guess, at that point in time. And so we spent about the first 18 months of the time that I was with the county in a double wide right there. There was the constable, the JP. We had a whole bunch of folks in those trailers, and we were pretty glad to see those trailers go away. And now we're getting ready to celebrate a brand new building, which makes that old building look like a double wide.
I think it was.
It probably was. They just put 4 or 5 of them together. Alice started out in the DA's office in worthless checks, moved over into the police intake for a while, and for the last many years has had the cross to bear of being with Commissioner Johnson's office. she, what she likes most and what she's said over and over again is the fact that she feels like in the position she's in, she's had an opportunity to help people. And that's really something that, in just talking with her, it's a passion. It's a passion I know of so many of y'all, but in talking with Alice, that's something I think over the years, over the 30 years that she's been with Tarrant County, that she's taken a lot of pride in. She said every day is a little bit different, but when it all comes down to it, it's a big family, and she said it's been around for a long, long time, and a lot of people that she's had a chance to work with. She knew she wanted to be here forever. She's had, she said 2 of her children are now police officers. One's in Fort Worth. One, I guess, works out in Big Spring. She has a daughter who works over at JPS and one that works at THR. 9 grandchildren
Bless your heart.
and 2 great-grandsons. So Alice has seen a lot of change in the 30 years that she's been with Tarrant County, and we are very, very glad that she's that spent those 30 years with us. Alice, thank you very, very much for your time.
When she leaves, I'll leave.
Alice, we can talk. Our last employee for this month is Andrea Zeiton, 30 years with Tarrant County. Obviously started when she was a child. Started in child support. Were you getting it, or were you actually just She said she then moved over to the personnel area and worked with Tina and Gerald. I guess this was at a time when your dad was sick, and it was something that she remembered because of the way folks kind of gathered around her and helped her through that period. Then she moved over into the district clerk's office. She said, I had a chance to work with a lot of great folks in that department. She now is over the passport area, the accounting and the collections, is doing a great job there. She said, when I asked her about memorable moments, she said a lot of the practical jokes, and I tried to get her to, she wouldn't tell. She said, I absolutely love the job. I love the folks that I've had a chance to work with. She said, it really is a big family. And she said, just as families, there's always issues with families. It is still a very close-knit group, and that everyone kind of takes care of everyone else. She said, I'm really proud and was ready and proud to be a part of the county. She said, I have an awful lot to owe to Tom and the opportunities he's given her. She said, I've had 2 kids while I was with the county. She says, everybody knows that it was great, and it's been a great place to work. When I asked her kind of what's happened over the last 5 years, she said, I've taken on more responsibility. She said she now has a new son-in-law. One of her daughters got married. She kept going on and on, just as she did really 5 years ago, about the people, her coworkers, the great teams that she had in the passport areas and the accounting areas and the collections. She said, I plan on being here for many more years. She said, well, yeah, let me put it this way. She might not necessarily be leaving when you're leaving. She said her dad was a city employee. She said she felt like when she took this job that she wanted this to be a life's work. And we're very, very glad that was the case and that is the case. Thank you very much for your 30 years. Total of 890 years of service. And as I look out here and I look at the at the folks. I recognize many of you. I wished I, could call all your names. I wished I could pronounce all your names right. But I just cannot begin to tell you how much we appreciate the jobs that you do, the passion that you take in to the jobs that you do. I know you folks in the Sheriff's Department lost a great leader, and we all know that, and we all share with you that loss. But again, we want to thank you and thank everyone here today for the service that you give to the citizens of Tarrant County in whatever circumstance they find themselves at that particular point in time. So again, thank you very much. Refreshments 504.
What is this for?
I think it's an appointment Amy's going to make. Could we have approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of December 23rd?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. You have before you the consent agenda.
Move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manion?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two additional items for you this morning under the administrator section. The first one, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court concur with the Tarrant County Hospital District Board of Managers and approve an easement and right-of-way agreement between the district and Encore Electric Delivery System.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 2, we're requesting that the court approve the nomination of the Parker Brown Company building, which is located at 1212 East Lancaster in Fort Worth, to the National Register of Historic Places.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Tidwell.
Good morning. We have 3 items for the court to consider this morning. The first is the approval of the release of depository collateral as outlined in your court communication for the $80 million.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item is to ask the court to authorize the removal of the assets that are no longer on hand or belonging to the county from the county's asset management system. Again, we will look over the procedures and maybe have a few recommendations on how we could improve this area. County has an enormous amount of assets. We do a great job purchasing IT, and the folks in my office with keeping up with them, but we do see some opportunities maybe for some improvement. But today we're asking that we be able to remove these assets that have a net book value of 0.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second.
That's a question.
Yes, sir.
I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
When these assets are missing, I'm assuming that maybe we know who possessed them at the last person that we know possessed them. Or what do we do on this? I mean, do we just
Well, one of the things
write
that...
it off like we're doing and forget it, or?
Well, they have a book value of 0. Whether they had a market value or a salvage value, that might be a difference. We might be able to sell them or salvage them. One of the things I think that does need to be improved is the custody so that we know when assets are moved around. We obviously track high-dollar assets. The lower dollar value assets we have different procedures for. But we need to maybe have a little bit of a tweak to some of our policies and practices. And so we know where they were, to answer your question. But there can be some confusion about maybe whether they were returned or whether they were still in our custody or whether they were provided to another agency, whether they were traded in. Sometimes
But we don't know that?
there's not clear paperwork, and so therefore we can't prove where they are. If they were traded in, for instance, we know we have a new replacement. It's not like we're missing an asset, but we don't have paperwork that clearly shows that that asset was traded in. On the computers, sometimes they can be given back to IT. Sometimes they can be provided to another staff person. I think we do need to have a little bit more paperwork and a little bit more focus on the paperwork for where the assets are.
There seem to be a lot of laptops,
Yes.
and I'm assuming all the laptops have one of these little yellow stickers on them, or yellow.
I'm assuming so, yes.
And
The laptops that we're looking at, we purchased over 10 years ago,
Right.
and they're 2005 laptops.
But that's not the point.
No,
That's
but-
not what I'm talking about.
But what I was going to say, Commissioner, is that in some instances, we cannibalize, we need to do a better job, and we're having procedures put in place, but it's not unusual for us to cannibalize a computer to fix another computer, especially if they're old and we don't use them. Now, we have to have a better process by which we notify purchasing, and which then ultimately, the auditor's office gets that information. We just need to do simply a little bit better job.
I think we need to work on our paperwork.
We have
I
6,300
totally agree, you need to
computers.
do a better
now.
job.
Yeah.
We need to
Well,
work on our
I'm trying to figure
paperwork.
out why does, tell me, I'm assuming we must be handing these out to all the volunteer fire departments. Why does the fire marshal need 18 tough books?
We do. It's all part of some of the processes that we work through Emergency Services District.
But we need a better process for where those are. I think we even need, I'm going to
When are
see,
we going to have that better process?
we're working on our report and working with the departments. The suggestion that I'm going to make is that we actually require physical signatures so that when we transfer an asset to someone, be it within the county or external to the county, that we have paperwork that clearly says that Renee Tidwell no longer has it because I gave it to Judge Whitley. And then there's not a question about, because I don't want you coming back to me and saying, but you have that. And I say, well, no, I turned it in, but I don't have any paperwork. So I think we just need to improve that process and certainly have more paperwork.
So.
I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan of paperwork either, but
I guess my question, though, is you're working with the departments. When
Yes.
are you going to have this done?
we're auditing IT and working with some folks in IT. I've already had communication with Mr. Mania's. IT may have already put something in place. I don't actually know whether they have or not. They're working on it. But I would say within 30 days.
Who's in charge of these inventory items? Which department is in charge of them?
The local government code is very specific that once a year, the purchasing agent conducts the inventory and provides that to the auditor, who is responsible for reconciling it. IT is the department that works with purchasing to actually inventory and account for the computer-related assets that meet the dollar threshold.
Okay.
And then
What
that
about
information-
Furniture and other assets, non-IT assets.
Non-IT assets, the way we set this up is that the departments are responsible for inventorying and keeping up with the assets and providing that information to purchasing on an annual basis, so that the purchasing agent can submit his inventory to the auditor.
So the purchasing office, would it be accurate to say that the purchasing office is in charge of the inventory management system?
Yes, but they rely on the department heads, and department officials are responsible for that in their areas. Purchasing has one employee who works in this area that coordinates and works with the asset coordinators in all of the various departments. You have an asset coordinator. I don't know who that is, but you have one. We all have one that works with purchasing. And then if an asset is removed from your shop, someone in your department is authorizing, in theory, completing that paperwork to notify purchasing that that asset has been sent somewhere else.
We used to get, and we may still,
You get a list of your assets.
every year that
Yes, sir.
says, this is what you have, verify that
Yes.
you still have it. If not, tell us
Yes,
what happened to it.
that's still the process.
It appears that IT has the most items that are missing or misplaced.
In this instance, most assuredly, yes. But we need more paperwork in other areas, too. It's not just IT.
Is that because, has everybody filled out, I mean, when do we do the inventory deal?
The inventory takes place throughout the year as far as the cycle counts and the spot checks. The departments are required to submit their signature related to whether or not you have your assets on hand on an annual basis. The purchasing agent compiles that information, puts it together, and provides it to the auditor's office once a year, and then we reconcile it. That's the process. And this is after we've reconciled it, and these are the items that we were not able to reconcile.
And so, I mean, some of the things, I guess, that concern me a little bit are copiers. One in a magistrate, I'm not sure whether that one's still missing or not. Ice machines?
We think that was
How the
traded.
hell did we miss an ice machine?
We think that was traded in. And technically, we don't have, the departments do not have the authority to trade in assets. The local government code is also very clear about the purchasing agent being responsible and being the only one authorized to distribute or remove assets from the county, those surplus assets. There's a process for that. And so in that instance, someone, again, I'm sure with no malintent, traded an ice machine in, got a new ice machine, but the old ice machine couldn't be identified.
And then the defibrillators, those concern me.
I'm not sure what happened on those.
Where were they located?
I don't think I have that detail. Not in this report. I can get that to
But in general,
you.
they're located in public places.
And these may be old ones also.
Well, and I'm looking at our list of AEDs because we do track those. And some are in patrol vehicles. Yeah, there are many that are in patrol vehicles. Some are in the not WIC, I'm sorry, are in the public health pods. And then a majority of them are in public places. I'm looking for those serial numbers. I'm not seeing them on our list. I'm not sure I have a list of those that have been deactivated.
Could be one we can't locate them.
We do need to probably tweak our process a little.
What sort of technology are we using to manage these inventory items? Do we use Excel spreadsheet or?
I think we take things out of SAP. We give lists out of SAP. If it goes back to if it meets the dollar value for being a tangible asset, it's given an asset number in SAP, and the lists come out of SAP. Okay. For items that don't meet that dollar value for other things, I'm not sure what that is. It's probably Excel. I know we work with purchasing to make sure that she has all the information in SAP and that we reconcile as best we can when those lists go out. So there's a lot of coordination between IT, purchasing, and the auditor's office. I just think that over time, some of the paperwork hasn't been being completed, and some of the updating and the removal of the assets. The only thing I would say about IT at this point is I think they've had a lot of other projects and emphasis placed on other areas, and I'm not sure that they have all of the resources that they've had in the past dedicated to this area. That might be something, again, that IT management and the court and Mr. Manius want to address, because this is a time-consuming process. There are a lot of assets. There's a lot of computers, obviously, a lot of computer equipment. And to be able to do more paperwork and to have a better tracking of those assets, and even if we have software to do more pinging and we ping and know they're there, but if we ping and we don't know they're there, following up, that requires resources. And I think those resources have had other focuses as well, and we've had turnover in staff. So I think certainly in that area we can improve, and then even in facilities and other areas we've spoken with them about their staff being more cognizant of turning in paperwork for those assets. There's forms that are to be completed when an asset is moved from point A to point B, but they don't always get completed possibly.
Any other questions?
Move to receive and file.
Well, I think we've already got our motion and second, so
Well, then I'll be quiet.
motion passes unanimously.
The third item today, we're requesting the Commissioners Court to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the 1 month ended October 31st, 2014. Trying to get back on track. The outside auditors are still here, and the books are closed for last year, and we're trying to get on track with the monthly financials.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, members of the court, the Criminal District Attorney's Office has 2 items on the agenda. The first item is that we would ask the court to approve the contract with the Denton County Medical Examiner District for fiscal year 2015.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item is we have before the court a request that you accept the subrogation funds in a case that has been compromised and settled by the office. The amount of the settlement is $2,226.95, and we would ask that you approve and accept those funds.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Welcome aboard. You made it without being too, you did great.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Much shorter than your predecessor. Ms. Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have several items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item, we're asking the court to approve changes to the table of organization for the Criminal District Attorney's Office. The details of the changes, of course, are described in your court communique. The comments that I'll make is that we're estimating savings of approximately $322,000 to the general fund in this fiscal year, and we're estimating additional savings in future years.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, we're asking the court to approve waivers of terminal benefits, again, for the Criminal District Attorney's Office. As described in your court communique, we have 3 individuals, so we're asking for 3 waivers for a total of 882 vacation hours. The net costs to the general fund we're estimating to be a little more than $32,500, including fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is the reason it's the net cost? Did that just chew up the $300,000 that you referred to before?
No, these are 2 different items. This item is, the waiver would be the vacation balances that departments either have to wait for the time to elapse or request a waiver, which is what we're doing today.
Okay. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, we're asking the court to approve changes to the table of organization for public health. Specifically, public health is wanting to add a new project position and a general office clerk 4 position. These are grant-funded positions. We're estimating the cost to the grant will be a little more than $126,600, including fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5, we're asking for a waiver of terminal benefits for the district clerk's office. We're asking the court specifically for a waiver of 384 vacation hours. We're estimating the net savings to the general fund to be approximately $600, including fringe benefits.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
In our 6th and final item, we're asking the court to approve 2 items for Precinct 3, requesting a double fill of a position and also a waiver. The office administrator is leaving at the end of this month, and the total cost to the Road and Bridge Fund we're estimating to be approximately $20,100, including fringe benefits.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come on down, Jack. Okay. I know you guys did pretty good during, you won, and LSU lost, just in passing. Obviously, Ohio State, who we all thought shouldn't have been in there, did all right. But we're still not going to forget about TCU because TCU did pretty good too. And having said all of that, Sunday's catch was still a catch.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Arkansas 31, Texas 7. Happy New Year.
Where's Shannon today?
She's in Austin.
Oh, okay.
Judge, we have 4 items for your consideration, but I'd like to go back to, I hope this would be a quiet start for the new year, maybe not. I'd like to make a couple of statements about the assets. Judge Young brought me a couple of previous asset doorstops, if you remember those days from the flash drives that we now use in 1989 and 1990. And I'm proud of the process that I don't feel like I'm being criticized. Please don't take it like that. But it's a huge process. Back in 1989 and 1990, my predecessor asked for additional personnel. We actually accomplished this task with one individual. We came to the court about 20 years ago and asked that all the departments become partners with us, and they anoint, assign, select an asset manager. And the assets that are lost, please believe me, we are just as concerned about it as anybody else. We take it very seriously. For the last 20 years, we've turned in that task on time. It's due July 1, as you all know. When somebody chooses to loan something out or let somebody borrow it, we have no control over that. We came to the court about 20 years ago, thereabouts, and asked, again, for those asset managers and requested that each department be responsible for a low-value asset listing, which most take very seriously. Some don't take it as seriously as others. That's the year we will be working on in conjunction with the auditor's office. And the list is pared down to almost nothing. So it is a good process. We still do it with everybody's help with one individual, and we do take it very seriously. So you can expect to see improvement. You do get the lists every year of the fixed assets, of which they're very small, except for the precinct with all your heavy equipment and vehicles and so forth. The defibrillators, I remember the company came out, we had some battery issues, and they changed them out. We think that we know those were tagged initially. We think that that's where those went. They changed them out, and we weren't able to tag those in a timely fashion, but we're all over it. But thank you for listening to that. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2015-048, sale of recycled paper. Recommendation would be to award on a pre-enterprise basis to the high bidder, Bottom Line Recycling, paying us $161 a ton for pre-sorted office paper.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is a bid award recommendation for bid 2015-027. This is a bid for the replacement of HVAC equipment at the Northwest Sub Courthouse Annex. Recommendation be to award the low bidder, 3D Mechanical Service Company, in the amount of $68,083.25. If this is approved, we're seeking contract approval, acceptance of the payment bond.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our number 3 item is is a bid award recommendation for bid 2015-038, and the purchase of furniture for the DA's investigators' officers at the Plaza Building. Recommendation be toward the low bidder, Intelligent Interiors, on a pre-enterprise basis.
Move
Approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our number 4 item is an item in regards to RFP 2015-046. This is an RFP for the operation and management of our Tarrant County parking facilities. We're seeking approval from the court to conduct negotiations with SP Plus Corporation.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Riley? You?
Morning.
Good morning, sir.
We are requesting the court's approval of an interlocal agreement with the City of River Oaks related to a corridor design study along State Highway 183, the River Oaks Boulevard. This project will be funded with discretionary bond funds from the Judge's Office and from Precinct 4.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any appointments today?
Yes, Your Honor. I have an appointment to the Historical Commission. It would be Dr. Natalie T. Johnson, who has a long history of service in this community, and I would appoint her to one of my vacant spots.
Okay.
Aren't we supposed to reappoint all of our people today or in January?
The appointments are normally March appointments unless by statute they're required to be appointed in September. So, you give me just a second, I'll have that answer for you.
What's this?
That's historical.
Yeah, this request we got from Natalie says to please make them no later than the end of January.
Yes, the Historical Commission is an exception to the March appointments. It is statutorily January, and it's a 2-year term, so it'd be 2015 through 2017. So it'd be a 2-year term, and they're January. So they're an exception to those other boards.
And do they not carry over like all of our other boards do?
I believe the Texas Historical Commission requires that they be reappointed, that they be serving current terms, if I'm not mistaken, Joe. Is that correct? Statute. And they have to be reappointed. The Texas Historical Commission requires that they're reappointed every 2 years. Yes. So that, yeah.
So somewhere between now and the end of the month, we
Yeah.
need to get them all appointed?
Yes, sir.
You want to go ahead, Commissioner?
I want to reappoint all of mine except Thomas Waterhold. He has moved. Reappoint all the others, all 7 of them. 6, however many it is. 7.
Andy, are you wanting to do?
This is for a TIF.
Oh, okay.
This is
So the rest of us will wait till,
I've got appointments to make.
okay. Gary, do you want to?
Yeah, couple of things. To the Historical Commission, I want to reappoint Erwin Hawk, Susan Taylor, Betty Fuller, Jeanette Cook, and Jim Hodgson. And to the Colleyville TIF, I want to appoint Carolyn Sims. To the North Richland Hills Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, number 1 and number 2. I want to reappoint Carolyn Sims.
You want to do it on one motion, Your Honor?
Sure, we're on a roll.
I'd like to reappoint all of our current members of the Tanton County Historical Commission. And in addition, I'd like to appoint Ms. Linda Dipert to the Arlington TIRZ number 4, which is the Arlington Highlands, and TIRZ number 5, which is the Entertainment District.
Are those new appointees?
Ms. Linda Dipert is a new appointee.
And I'll reappoint all of my current historical committee members. I think I have some vacancies to try to fill.
And I will reappoint all of my current ones with the exception of Mrs. Leila Standifer, who passed away last month.
I will second all those nominations.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll spend some time, I'm sure, reconciling all this.
That's the problem.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Do we have any bonds to approve today? I don't think so.
Not today.
Then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
A motion is second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have one additional item we'd like to talk to you about this morning. This is item B under briefing. It is the City of Fort Worth Incremental Financing District Zone number 15, which is the Stockyards TIF. Ms. McMillan.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good
The
morning.
City of Fort Worth recently established a 925-acre tax increment reinvestment zone in the Stockyards area of North Fort Worth. This TIF is expected to provide approximately $40 million in funding that will provide needed infrastructure and site improvements that are expected to facilitate the revitalization of the area and encourage private development of retail, entertainment, hospitality, commercial, and residential development valued at over $300 million over the 20-year life of the TIF. Michael Hennig from the City of Fort Worth's Housing and Economic Development Department is here to give you a presentation over the projects that are planned for this TIF and the financing that is expected.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners.
Morning.
My name is Michael Hennig. I'm the Business and Community Development Coordinator for the City of Fort Worth's Housing and Economic Development Department. I was actually just sitting thinking a moment about how appropriate it is that this presentation was preceded by Mr. Bass's presentation on the stock show and all of the great things that are happening with it now and in the years to come as we turn now to the place where it all began. As Lisa just mentioned, on December 2nd in 2014, the City of Fort Worth's City Council passed an ordinance establishing Tax Increment Financing District number 15, Stockyards North Side, surrounding the Stockyards and portions of the North Side neighborhood, which I will describe here in a moment. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of this TIF district, the proposed project and financing plan, and some of the next steps that would lead toward its formal creation and implementation. So, as you know, there have been discussions going on since this past summer and about the creation of a tax of a TIF surrounding the Stockyards. As a matter of fact, actually, there have been conversations about the creation of a TIF for many years now around the stockyards, but as with so many other things, timing is important when it comes to the creation of a TIF. So in terms of why has a TIF been created at this particular point, in taking a look at the area that is within the boundaries of the new TIF district, it is characterized by having infrastructure that is severely outdated. However, there's been an increase in development interest for that particular area that is beyond the current capacity of that infrastructure to be able to support. And so in evaluating the various options for how to be able to address that need, a tax increment financing district was identified as being the most appropriate solution given the circumstances. And so I'll go ahead and also just mention that the established TIF does, of course, meet all state required requirements as detailed in Chapter 311 of the tax code. So in taking a look at the actual boundaries that have recently been created for this TIF, they run generally from 30th Street in the north on down to Grand Avenue in the south, and from Clinton Avenue in the west on over to the edge of I-35 in the east. Now, these boundaries that you see in front of you that have been established were discussed with staff of various taxing entities within that apply to this particular area, including, of course, Tarrant County, and were revised based on feedback. These boundaries, as well as a couple of sets of alternatives, were also presented to a group of stakeholders on September 25th in order to gain their input, and these boundaries were indicated as being their preferred boundaries. Just to note a few key areas within those boundaries, it includes the intersections of Northside Drive and North Main, as well as North Main and Exchange Avenue, North Main and 28th Street, as well as a good portion of the 28th Street corridor reaching from a few blocks west of Main Street on over to I-35, and a section of Brennan Avenue, which is directly to the east of the stockyards. So, as mentioned, in all, this includes approximately 925 acres, and the TIF has been established for a 20-year term, which would stretch from its base year of 2014 on through to 2035. The estimated value in its base year was approximately $171 million, and we're projecting that that will increase to about $828 million during the life of the TIF by the point that it is terminated in 2035. From this increase in property value, the TIF, as currently projected based on the taxing entities that we're requesting participate, and at the levels that we are requesting they participate in, would produce approximately $40 million to fund projects within TIF boundaries. And the project financing plan details what are considered to be eligible projects for those funds to be pointed toward and supported. Specifically, we are requesting a 50% participation rate by the county, as well as the Water District and the County College District. Upon termination in 2035, we are estimating that the area that we're looking at would produce an additional $9.2 million in aggregate for the taxing entities that would be participating in this district based on property taxes alone. Of course, that doesn't include any increases in sales taxes that might also apply due to increased development activity in the area. Included within the project and financing plan, and I do apologize, this can be a little difficult to read the numbers on here, but it goes into a bit more detail within the proposed project and financing plan, are a set of financials that indicate the base value of the TIF district and annual growth within property values over the course of the life of that TIF and the revenues that would generate. Those numbers can be summarized probably best by this particular graph, which indicates the increase in property values over the life of the TIF, beginning, as I mentioned, from $171 million its base on up to approximately $828 million. This includes approximately $185 million in total of development that we are currently expecting as being associated with the Majestic development, which is also known as the Fort Worth Heritage Project. And that's why I mentioned that timing is important. When establishing a TIF, you want to make sure that you're doing it at a time when you are able to reasonably expect that there is going to be a significant increment produced that can in turn be used to facilitate improvements in the area. And with this proposed project and others that we anticipate, we feel that the timing is right to be able to do that now. And so that has led to the creation of this TIF. And so these numbers reflect that development as well as a baseline 1.5% annual growth rate just off of increases in tax appraisals absent any other development, and an additional $300 to $500 million depending on circumstances. Actually, these numbers reflect about $500 million in total of additional development within the area. So I mentioned that the project and financing plan details what that projected $40 million worth of funds, as it's collected, could potentially go to fund. Really, it's broken up into two different sections. The way that we've organized it is that we've detailed the specific categories of projects that would be considered eligible to receive support from the TIF district, and then also the specific items and expenses that those funds would be able to go to support for these projects. And so just to highlight a few projects that would be included as considered eligible given the, rather under the proposed project finance plan, it would include mixed-use developments, historic preservation and restoration, transit-oriented development in anticipation, for instance, of the proposed Tex Rail stop that is planned for that particular area. And then, of course, certain improvements along major commercial corridors in that area. So in terms of the specific expenses that would be considered eligible for those types of projects, really they're very similar to the types of expenses that you see in many other TIFs within the city of Fort Worth and then also Tarrant County as a whole, road improvements, streetscape improvements, things of that nature. So as I mentioned, the TIF district itself has been formally established by the city, and so it is now in existence. The next steps that we are looking at between this point and then the point at which the TIF is active would be really focused on securing the participation agreements with those taxing entities that apply to the district that have an interest in participating in this TIF. Subsequent to that would be the formation of the TIF board, which would be the representative body and would guide all policy actions by the TIF board and guide the distribution of those funds. And then we anticipate once that board has been appointed and formally created, having the TIF board meet probably in sometime in February. And then at that point, their first action item would be to either provide any additional comment on the proposed project financing plan, and if there are edits that would be necessary, staff would address those issues, or absent that, the new TIF board would approve that proposed project and financing plan.
What size board are you anticipating?
I'm sorry, sir?
What size board are you anticipating?
We are anticipating a 9-person board.
A 9-person board.
Yes, Commissioner.
And how will those slots be allocated between the taxing entities?
So each of the participating taxing entities would, actually, I should back up. There will be 2 council members from the city of Fort Worth that will be on the board. And then each of the taxing entities that are participating will each have 1 appointee, and then the remainder will be appointed by city council, has been the situation in other TIFs.
I would like to suggest to the city of Fort Worth that in making its appointments to this board, that they not ignore the Hispanic community, which is indigenous to that area.
That's right.
Make sure that there is some representation on that board.
Yes, Commissioner, I do appreciate that comment, and I can tell you that that has been a part of the conversation within the area, and that is in fact one of the reasons why we made a conscious decision not to limit it strictly to the stockyards proper, but to look at some of the surrounding areas of the north side neighborhood.
Thank you.
Is this the present, are you through with the presentation?
Yes, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I guess the question I have is that refresh my memory. Normally, when we have a presentation, we know there's a pretty detailed outline of how we're going to spend the money. And we don't go in, or at least to the best of my knowledge in the past, we've not gone into, we're going to give you money for 20 years and, you know, good luck. So when are we not going to get a detail of this is what we're expecting to spend, where we put a ceiling? Because we usually put a ceiling on that because, as you just described, we're going to have one person on that board. And so we typically or historically have put a ceiling on what we're there, and if you want to come back and get more money to do other things, then we have an opportunity at that point in time to determine whether we're going to participate in that.
Yes, Your Honor. Certainly, we anticipate the possibility, and of course, we would defer to your preference on the establishment of a cap to any contributions that the county would
contribute. Well, but when are you going to give us a budget that shows us what you're going to spend?
So we're actually anticipating that specifically being driven more by the TIF board itself. So
you're not going to give us one?
Judge, if I can address, on page 15 of the attached project and the project and financing plan, they show the anticipated project costs in categories. So we have road and access improvements, public infrastructure improvements, streetscaping, public parking, public amenities, administrative expenses. So those are the categories. And we've done this in other TIFs too, similar ones, where there's categories and there's so much amount allocated to that. And then as the projects come up, similar on the south side TIF, because those projects come up all the time. There's money allocated to a certain area, and then as a project comes up, it goes to the TIF board and is voted on for approval to actually spend money within that category. So this is going to be the same, because at this point, except for the main project, the $185 million Majestic Hospitality project with the hotel, that's the only known project at this time. And anything that comes is going to be, that's going to serve as a catalyst. So there's going to be certain categories and certain things that they're looking for, but then those certain projects will go to the TIF board for approval if they fit in to one of these categories.
Well, I understand that, but once they go to the, I mean, we don't have any control over the money. And most of the things that we've done, they've come with us and said, here's what we expect to spend, and we've said, here's what we can participate in, and so here's the cap we'll put on it, and when you decide you want to spend something else because it pays off in 5 years versus 10, then you come to us, and if we want to participate in that, then we have an opportunity to participate in that and define the amount to which we want to participate in that.
This is very similar to what we did on Grapevine, TIF for Grapevine Mills, in that they came back when they wanted to do something additional and got our approval or disapproval.
I do want to say that this list right here of eligible projects, the staff has sat down with myself and others from the other taxing entities, and we did kind of flesh this out for these categories. These are the type of projects that we were supportive, and we thought that the TIF money would.
At least I understand the types of projects we're talking about, but we, in most instances, we specifically see what projects we're talking about.
It's possible to take the proposed 50% contribution and figure out the amount of money that we would be contributing over the lifetime of the TIF and cap our
we will be capping it in the agreement.
to that projected amount. And then if there is a desire to exceed that amount, then they'll have to come back to this body to get permission to expand the cap. That's the way we've done it in previous TIFs.
That's correct.
Previously, we've had a pretty good idea of what those dollars were that they were expecting to spend, and it may have been estimated that the life of the TIF was going to be 20 years, and it may have paid off in 5 years or 10 years, but or probably more like 10 or 15. from that standpoint, but it still pays off as opposed to saying, here's a blank check, and as long as you write it, as long as you do things that your board says are within these categories, then we can spend your money.
I think what we'll do, let me see if I can help a little bit. First of all, this is a briefing item. This is not an action item today. And so the formal agreement is going to have to be brought back to the Commissioners Court for your approval. Lisa, what we need to do is when we bring that formal document to the court for their approval, we need to take that page 15 and detail the projects so the court members can see what those projects are, and then we'll incorporate them as part of that agreement so that if there's any modification or movement away from those, that the agreement has to be approved.
And what we may do is take those broad categories and take some of these items that they want to, and maybe actually put that in the project plan so it's more detailed,
Yeah.
and break that down.
Lisa, we just have to become a little more granular on this thing. We'll do that.
I do want to address too, because the 50% by all of the entities, I want to address that. Typically the city would put in more percentage. And the reason why the city is not is because over 50% of the anticipated development within the zone is going to be from the initial project, the Majestic project. The city, in addition to participating at 50% in the TIF, is also doing, through an economic development agreement, they will be rebating up to 40% of the real and personal property value. So they give 50 to the TIF district, and then 40% on top of that is going back as incentive to that initial project for that 20-year period, correct?
That's correct.
And in addition to that, so 40%, so that basically now they're in at 90% for that one project, the $185 million project alone. In addition, on that project, which is a hotel and entertainment, multi-retail, they're also going to be contributing 80% of the 1% sales tax generated from that project. So they are putting additional funds in, and the ability for them to do that directly back to the developer, that's why they had to keep their participation at 50%, so they had something left to be able to give back to the developer.
We will bring a more detailed document back to the court whenever we ask you to approve it.
You're from the housing and economic development area?
Yes, sir.
So that means you also deal with your housing applications and things from the Fort Worth Housing Authority?
The housing authority handles that separately, and of course, my role is predominantly focused on TIF administration.
You might suggest to them that we'd like for them to consider applying for their housing stuff through the Tarrant County Housing District as opposed to the Texas housing in the future.
I'd be more than happy to pass it along.
I did want to finish up too, because on what we were talking about, the cap, under this, it's expected to be about a little over $8 million for the county's contribution of that $40 million.
Is the state putting anything into that deal?
The state?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I didn't think they were. Remind the housing authority of that, too.
So, thank you, Commissioners, and we will work with the city to finalize and to refine the documents. So when we
And to remind.
And Lisa,
Yes.
could I visit with you after our meeting for just a second?
Do what?
Could I visit with you
Yes,
after
we
our meeting
can.
for just a second?
Not a problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Members of the court, that's all we have at this time.
Then we will recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under sections 551, .071, 072, 074, 076, and 067, 076 of the Texas Government Code.